My name is Ava, and for my entire life, I was the quiet variable in my family's grand equation. The dependable, low-maintenance daughter they never had to worry about. They saw me as their most reliable, yet least remarkable asset. They had no idea I was the only thing holding their gilded world together. This is the story of how I audited my family's lies and foreclosed on their trust. Christmas Eve at my parents' home in Greenwich, Connecticut was a performance, polished to perfection. The scent of pine from the towering tree mingled with the aroma of my mother's beef Wellington. My brother Leo, a rising star architect, was captivating everyone with stories of a new skyscraper design. My sister Sophia, a chic gallery curator from Soho, was describing a fabulous artist she'd just signed. My mother, Isabel, watched them with a look of radiant pride. For a fleeting moment, I let myself hope. This year, my news was tangible, a major promotion to lead UX designer at a fast-growing tech startup, an engagement to Noah, a man who saw me for everything I was. This was the year, I thought. This was the year they'd finally have to acknowledge me. I waited until after dinner, when the port was being passed around. My heart hammered against my ribs. I pulled a small, elegant box from my purse. Noah asked me to marry him, I said, my voice soft but clear. We're engaged. A round of polite, almost clinical congratulations followed. My father, Arthur, gave me a warm, genuine smile, but my mother's smile didn't reach her eyes. When did this happen? Sophia asked, examining the ring with a critical eye. In November, I replied. We were on a trip in Vermont. Isabel's voice sliced through the polite chatter. November? You've been engaged for over a month and you're only telling us now, Ava? Before I could answer, she turned to the table, a theatrical sigh escaping her lips. Well, I suppose we should be happy. A UX designer, is it? Darling, that's not a career, it's a hobby with a paycheck. I just hope Noah understands he's marrying someone with limited prospects. The room fell silent. The crackling fire in the hearth was the only sound. It was a perfectly executed assassination, disguised as motherly concern. For years I had absorbed these little cuts, these casual dismissals. But this one was different. I felt the familiar sting of hurt, but underneath it, something new and cold began to crystallize. I looked at my mother's perfectly composed face, and I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just smiled. A small, tight, unreadable smile that made her own falter for just a fraction of a second. She thought she'd landed a killing blow. She thought she'd reminded me of my place. She had no idea she'd just handed me a declaration of war. And my first move wasn't going to be with words. It was going to be with wires. I feigned a sudden migraine and left early. The drive back to my Boston apartment was a silent storm of focus. My mind wasn't replaying the insult. It was formulating a plan. That night, sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. In the cool blue light of my monitor, I became a different person. Not the accommodating daughter, but a cold, efficient auditor. Step 1. Cut the funding. I logged into my bank. There it was. A recurring transfer of $1,200, scheduled for the first of every month, labelled Family Support. It had been running for 3 years. I stared at the long list of past payments, each one a testament to my own willful blindness. My finger tapped the mouse. Cancel recurring payment. A small, satisfying click echoed in my silent apartment. The supply line was severed. Step 2. Call for backup. This was bigger than my feelings. This was about facts. I needed someone who dealt in facts. Someone immune to emotional blackmail. I dialed Grace, my best friend since grad school. She was a forensic accountant, a bloodhound for numbers. She answered, her voice thick with sleep. Ava, it's 2 a.m. Did someone die? No, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Someone's about to wish they had. Grace, I need an audit, a personal one, on my own family." There was a pause. I heard the sound of a lamp clicking on. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice now crisp and professional. "My mother called my career a hobby," I said. "I need to know exactly how much my hobby has been costing me." Grace listened patiently as I laid out the years of vague requests and sudden emergencies. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Ava, send me every statement you can find," she said finally. "Every email, every text. We'll build a case file." She paused. "But a word of advice. This doesn't smell like desperation, it smells like a system, and we need to find the blueprint." A system. The word echoed in my mind. I had always seen myself as the family's emergency service. What if, instead, I was their primary source of income? The thought was sickening. How far did this rabbit hole go? The next 2 weeks were an obsession. I became an archaeologist of my own life, digging through digital ruins. I unearthed emails with subject lines like "a small favour" and "thinking of you," which always ended with a request for a few $1,000s. I compiled a dossier of text messages, a timeline of manufactured crises. Separately, they were just annoying obligations. Together, they formed a chilling mosaic of exploitation. Grace was a machine. She ingested the data and spat out cold, hard patterns. "Okay, look at this," she said during one of our late-night calls, sharing her screen. "The big transfers you made to your mother, the ones for unexpected repairs or medical scares, they don't seem random." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning closer to my monitor. "I did a business registry search," Grace explained. "Your mother is the sole proprietor of a small LLC, Seabreeze Holdings. There's not much public info, but the quarterly tax payment deadlines for Connecticut LLCs are April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th. She highlighted 4 dates on our spreadsheet. The dates I had sent transfers of over $3,000. They were all within a day or two of the tax deadlines. My stomach dropped. "So, my emergency money was paying her business taxes?" "It looks like it," Grace confirmed. "She was using you as her corporate sponsor. But what is this business? It has no public footprint. There's something else going on here. There has to be a paper trail at their house." The chance came unexpectedly. My father called, his voice warm and oblivious. "Ava, sweetheart, I'm trying to sort out some old photo albums for your grandmother. I can't find that box from your college graduation trip. Do you remember where we put it?" "I think it's in the attic, Dad," I said, my mind instantly racing. "But some of my old design portfolios might be in your office. I could come by this weekend and help you look." "That would be wonderful," he said. That Saturday, I drove to Greenwich with a knot of dread and determination in my stomach. After an hour of feigning a search in the dusty attic, I made my excuse. "No luck up here. Let me just check your office for my old portfolios, Dad." "Go right ahead," he called from the living room. I closed the office door behind me. The room was immaculate, dominated by a large mahogany desk. My target was the antique wooden filing cabinet in the corner. I knew for a fact it was kept locked. My heart hammered as I pulled a tension wrench and a pick from my pocket, tools from a lock-picking hobby I'd picked up online out of sheer curiosity. It felt absurd, like something out of a spy movie. My hands trembled, but after a tense minute, I felt the lock give way with a soft thunk. I slid open the bottom drawer, the one labelled Household. I sifted past insurance policies and appliance warranties, and then I saw it. A thick pale blue folder tucked at the very back, with no label. I pulled it out. The first document was a loan agreement, a second mortgage, a home equity line of credit for $250,000, taken out against my childhood home nearly 3 years ago. I flipped through the pages. Statement after statement showed a balance that was almost maxed out. They had been making interest-only payments. The money I had been sending them every month wasn't for a Lexus or a country club membership. It was the bare minimum to stop the bank from taking the house. I felt a wave of nausea, my mother's disdain, her constant belittling of my career. It was all cast in a new, hideous light. She wasn't just looking down on me. She was looking down on her lifeline. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Everything okay, dear? Found anything?" The clock was ticking. I used my phone to snap pictures of the key documents. As I was sliding the papers back, a single sheet fluttered to the floor. It was a wire transfer confirmation for $15,000, sent from the home equity account. The recipient was not my mother or father. It was Leo Vance Designs, LLC. The doorknob rattled. I shoved the folder back, kicked the drawer shut just as my mother entered. "Any luck?" she asked, her eyes sweeping the room. "Nope," I said, holding up an empty hand. "Must be at my apartment after all." The first domino fell on the 2nd of the next month. The auto payment for the Lexus was declined. My mother's call was immediate. "Ava, what is going on? The dealership just called me. It's incredibly embarrassing." "Is it?" I asked, my voice cool. "I'm sorry to hear that. My finances are a bit tight. Maybe my hobby with a paycheck had a slow month." A beat of stunned silence. Then, click. She hung up. The war had gone from cold to hot. The calls started first to my siblings, then from them to me. Sophia called from New York. "Ava, I don't know what childish game you're playing with Mother, but you need to grow up and fix it. You're upsetting her." "Am I?" I replied. "That's a shame." I hung up before she could respond, but the call that changed the entire game came from Grace that night. "Ava, I pulled the incorporation documents for Leo Vance Designs, LLC. Your mother isn't on them, but someone else is." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Leo is listed as the sole owner, but I dug deeper." "The wire transfer you found?" I cross-referenced it with his business expenses. That $15,000 wasn't for a debt. It was the exact amount he needed to purchase the high-end 3D rendering software and hardware for his new firm. He used the secret mortgage on your parents' house as his personal seed money. My brother, the golden boy, the one who was supposed to be above it all. He wasn't just a beneficiary of the system, he was an active participant. He had willingly taken a chunk of the money that was putting his parents' home at risk to fund his own ambition, all while I was being bled dry to cover the interest. I knew then what I had to do. This couldn't be a series of small skirmishes. This required a single decisive battle, a complete and total reckoning. My mind went into overdrive. Step 1, consolidate the evidence. Step 2, set the battlefield. Step 3, send the summons. I called my father, my voice leaving no room for argument. "Dad, we are having a family meeting this Sunday at the house. Everyone will be there. Leo, Sophia, and especially Grandma Beatrice. Tell them it's about the long-term financial security of this family. Tell them it is not optional." The final pieces were in place. The stage was set. The weekend before the meeting, David took me to his parents' house for Sunday dinner. I was tense, my mind consumed with the upcoming confrontation. But the moment I walked in, the warmth of their home felt like a blanket. David's mom asked me about my new promotion, and she listened for 10 straight minutes, asking smart questions about my projects. His dad high-fived me when I told him about a successful campaign. Nobody compared me to anyone, nobody dismissed my work. I almost started crying right there at the table, not from sadness, but from the shocking, overwhelming feeling of being seen. It was a glimpse of what a family could be. It was a reminder of what I deserved, and it solidified my resolve. I wasn't just ending something toxic, I was fighting for a future that felt like this. The day of the meeting, the living room felt like a courtroom. My mother and Leo sat together on the sofa, a silent, defensive alliance. Sophia sat apart, scrolling on her phone, radiating impatience. My father paced nervously, and my grandmother, Beatrice, sat in her wingback chair, her gaze missing nothing. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't cry. I began as if I were a consultant presenting findings. I placed 5 thick, neatly bound folders on the coffee table. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I've called this meeting to address a series of severe financial discrepancies that threaten the foundation of this family. I've prepared a summary for each of you." I gestured to the folders. "Please open them." My father opened his first. His face drained of colour as he stared at a copy of the second mortgage agreement. "Isabel, what is this?" he whispered, his hands shaking. "The house was paid for. We burned the mortgage a decade ago." Sophia flipped through her copy, her perfectly curated composure cracking. She looked from the pages to our mother, her expression one of dawning horror. I ignored them and turned to my brother. "Leo," I said evenly, "your folder is slightly different. If you'll turn to Exhibit B." He opened the folder, his confident smirk fading as he saw the wire transfer confirmation to his LLC, followed by a copy of his business equipment receipts that matched the amount perfectly. "You knew," my father said, his voice breaking as he finally understood. He wasn't looking at my mother anymore. He was looking at his son. "You knew about the loan." "He did more than know, Dad," I interjected, my voice sharp and clear. "He was a beneficiary. They took a fraudulent loan against your home, and Leo used a piece of it to launch his firm, all while the rest of us thought he was a self-made success." Finally, I faced my mother. She was trapped, her eyes darting around the room for an escape that wasn't there. "Which brings us to the final question," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "How were you planning to pay the interest on this $250,000 secret? How did you keep the bank from finding out?" I let the silence stretch. Then I opened my own folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper, the spreadsheet. "You used me," I stated. "Every frantic phone call, every invented crisis, every guilt-ridden plea was a calculated lie to get me to pay the interest on your secret debt." I placed the spreadsheet on the table, the final total at the bottom circled in a thick red marker. $52,000. That's what my hobby was worth to you. That's the price you put on my loyalty. The implosion was swift and total. My father, looking 10 years older, stood up and walked out of the room, not even glancing at his wife or son. My grandmother, Beatrice, rose from her chair. She looked at my mother and Leo with an expression of such profound contempt, it made me flinch. "You have brought shame on this family," she said, her voice a low tremor of fury. She walked over to me, placed a hand on my shoulder, and then left the room. Sophia, the pragmatist, saw the wreckage. She saw the potential for legal action, the sheer ugly fraud of it all. She stood, picked up her designer handbag and said, "I have to be in the city for a dinner." She walked out without a backward glance. I was alone with them, the architects of the lie. There was nothing more to say. I had simply presented the facts, and the facts had condemned them. The months that followed were quiet and devastating. My parents' marriage dissolved. My father, backed by my grandmother, initiated legal action to separate their assets and protect what was left of his finances. News travels fast in a town like Greenwich. Leo's reputation took a nosedive. Clients pulled out. His grand expansion became a quiet contraction. I felt no satisfaction, no thrill of victory, just a vast, hollow emptiness. But day by day, that emptiness began to fill up with something new, peace. I threw myself into my work. I poured my energy into Noah. We explored hiking trails. We took cooking classes. We built a life that was quiet and stable, and ours. A year later, Noah and I were in a lawyer's office, signing the mortgage papers for our first home. My phone vibrated with an unknown number. I almost declined it, but I answered. "Ava?" The voice was hesitant, almost unrecognizable. It was Leo. I know it's been a while. Dad mentioned you were buying a house. I wanted to say congratulations. I hope you're happy." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't absolution. But it was acknowledgement. It was the first tiny crack in a lifetime of arrogance. "Thank you, Leo," I said, and to my own surprise, I meant it. I didn't destroy my family. I just held up a mirror. They were the ones who couldn't stand the reflection. The lies they built were too heavy, and their world collapsed under the weight. The Bank of Ava is closed for good, but for the first time in my life, I feel truly wealthy. My net worth isn't measured in dollars anymore. It's measured in peace of mind. It's measured in the honest love of my husband. It's measured in the freedom of knowing that my value was never, ever theirs to decide. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand to protect your own peace? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe that sometimes the strongest move is to walk away, like this story and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your worth.